am thrilled to, first of all, express some gratitude before we introduce our next speaker. I want a really loud round of applause for our catering service, Lady J's Catering. They have done such an exceptional job, and you have the best costumes. And also, I'm out of breath. I did not win the step challenge yesterday. I ran like 100 feet over here. Media Productions, you guys are pros. We thank you, and our online viewers thank you for keeping everything on track and for keeping the lighting lit, and we're really grateful for your work too, so thank you so much. All right, well, I get to introduce Eric Holland, who's going to come up to the stage to announce the State Historical Society History Award, so come on up here.
Thank you. As she said, I'm Eric Holland, the Curator of Education with the State Historical Society of North Dakota. And I'd like you to join me to take a few moments to acknowledge the place where we've been meeting these past few days as part of the ancestral homeland of the Nuptadi. One thing that I've heard repeatedly this week is we North Dakotans are not very good at recognizing the wonderful things that we do. The State Historical Society of North Dakota has had a process in place to recognize outstanding efforts in local history since 1984, the Local History Award Program. This process is a way for people across the state to nominate those in their local communities who have done outstanding work related to the past. If nominations for qualified honorees are not completed, recognitions are not made. There are handouts that detail the program on the registration table on your way out or on the State Historical Society website at a really hard website to remember, history.nd.gov. Got it? Okay. There are 3 different categories of awards in this program. The Excellence in Local History Award recognizes individuals, groups, or organizations who have dedicated time, talent, and effort to local and regional history that can serve as role models of excellence. The Heritage Profile Honor Award recognizes individuals who have made lasting or significant contributions in preserving, interpreting, researching, publishing, promoting, or otherwise extending the knowledge and understanding of the history of North Dakota, and have demonstrated long-term dedication and personal commitment in pursuit of these goals. Eligible individuals for this award can be living or dead. The North Dakota History Award recognizes individuals who have played a prominent role in the history of North Dakota. Eligible nominees for this award must be deceased for at least 10 years. The State Historical Society works with nominators and honorees of each award to hold meaningful presentation ceremonies for the honorees in your local area and list those honored on plaques at the North Dakota Heritage Center and State Museum. So I want to take just a very few minutes to announce the 2019 honorees. The 2019 North Dakota Person of History Award honoree is Lydia Sage Chase. Lydia applied her propensity for sharing by imparting the importance of retaining one's cultural heritage and traditions and values in education programs, public events, workshops, and daily as she talked with visitors at Knife River Indian Villages, National Historic Site, and on a Slant Village as a cultural and Native American interpreter. The 2019 Heritage Profile Honor Award honoree is Edwin Benson, who dedicated much of his life as the last fluent speaker of the Mandan language to its preservation by teaching children its basic elements and working with linguists to document more complex use. Dr. Benson's efforts left a legacy to be built on while providing a vital aspect of Indigenous knowledge and North Dakota heritage. This year, there are 2 Excellence in Local History Award honorees. The first, Dr. Rosalie Etherington, began her tenure at the North Dakota State Hospital in 1994 as a clinical psychologist, then later became the clinical director, and now the state's hospital superintendent since 2015. She personally spearheaded and completed and maintains the North Dakota State Hospital Museum in Jamestown. As part of this work, she's hosted the 125th anniversary celebration of the hospital in 2010. She retains an archive including oral histories and revitalized the North Dakota State Hospital cemeteries by reestablishing fencing, creating notable entrance, and replacing unrecognizable headstones. And the other 2019 honoree for the Excellence in Local History Award is the Grand Forks County Historical Society. Formally organized in 1970, the Grand Forks County Historical Society is committed to sharing the stories of people of Grand Forks County through its architectural collection for nearly 50 years. The Society fulfills one of the local historical society's highest functions by integrating an understanding of Grand Forks' history as part of the contemporary public's own backstory, life, and experiences. Please take a few moments to reflect on how these honorees' contributions and their efforts to support healthy, vibrant communities could make a difference. Now consider people in your organizations, in your local areas, who have taken time to recognize where we come from and where we are going. Consider submitting a nomination for one of these awards in the future to recognize worthy candidates in your community. Thank you. And I'm still standing here. Is it cool that I go ahead? Must be. I've been asked to introduce the next keynote speaker, and I wasn't sure if this is when. So it's very appropriate that I do this because I have probably spent more time with her than any other person in this room. Last night at the social, she sat down at the table where I was sitting and engaged in a conversation with me and the others sitting there for much of the evening. So we go way back. It didn't take me long, however, to figure out that this person was a newcomer to the great state of North Dakota. It was not a Scandinavian or a German-Russian accent that I noticed. As we chatted, it became clear to me why she has been asked to speak to you today. She comes to us from one of the top 10 small towns in America, Bardesville, Kentucky. She's spoken at events all over the U.S. and was invited to be part of the small town think tank in Perth and Melbourne, Australia. Her mission in life is to spread the word internationally that you can, quote, indeed live large in a small town. She is the president of the Nelson County Economic Development Agency in Bardstown. She oversees all economic development activity in Nelson County, including industrial development, Chamber of Commerce, small business development, and the Main Street program, excuse me, and their very strong tourism agency. Bardesville is the bourbon capital of the world, as 90% of the world's bourbon is made in Bardesville and its surrounding area. It did not go unnoticed by me last night, however, that our table mate enjoyed a sip of white wine, as she reminded me that she was from the Napa Valley, of the bourbon industry. We discussed many aspects of small town life, and it became apparent to me that she is passionate about the seductive charm and appeal that so many small towns have today. She enjoys convincing anyone who will listen what indeed you can do for big business in your small town. She has a love affair with her not-so-big city, small town lifestyle, and has told the world about it in her book, Small Town Sexy, The Allure of Living in Small Town America. So, with no further ado, it's truly my pleasure to introduce Kim Huston.
And I want to thank my dear old friend of less than 24 hours, Eric. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. And howdy, North Dakota from Kentucky. And I can make this one joke because I'm from Kentucky. I wore my good shoes today to speak to you all. We always says, oh, Kentucky, do you wear shoes? Yes, we do, and it's okay if you think that. And I actually wore my good ones today. But I'm so glad to be here, and I was very honored to be asked to be at this. And I have, honestly, and I was telling Emily this earlier, I've done this on several occasions in different locations across the U.S., out of the country, but this has to be one of the most well-organized, interesting conferences for small towns, main streets that I have ever been to. And I think everyone who's done this, give yourself a round of applause. So, I am from the bourbon capital of the world. There we go. And the most beautiful small town in America. Not self-designated by myself, though I would like to say so. USA Today and Rand McNally came through a few years ago and selected the most beautiful small town in America. We were actually up against Sedona, Arizona. We were up against Tybee Island, Georgia. These are wonderful, beautiful communities if you've ever been to them. But when the judges came in and said, sure, Sedona has the red rocks, Tybee Island has the wonderful oceans, but you all have that's different from everybody else, it was the beauty you had on the inside. And I find that so true in small towns. It's not just the beauty outside, but it's the people. And it's the people who live there. It's the people who fall in love. And I considered my town like my third child. And don't tell me my third child is ugly. This is my town. I love it. And I think as most of you all think about the communities that you live in, we all certainly do have a love affair of our communities. Let me go back here. We are the bourbon capital of the world. 90% of the bourbon that is made in my town. We have over 2.5 million barrels of bourbon aging in our warehouses right now in our county. That is more than the population in Kentucky. So everyone in Kentucky gets a barrel of bourbon. And so that's what we like to think, but we are the bourbon capital. Jim Beam, Maker's Mark, all these that you've probably heard, they're all made in our community. And it's been very, very important to our economy, not just because it has endowed a brand new economy yet again since Prohibition, we've brought it back. It's a tourism boom for us right now in Bardstown and Nelson County. We have 8 distilleries. They're all building visitor centers. Every barrel of bourbon that actually sits in these warehouses, the schools get $1.25 for every one of these that are sitting there. So bourbon feeds our school system. The county government gets a quarter for every barrel of bourbon that's sitting in these warehouses. Thus, part of how I get paid is through the storage of the bourbon industry. So the bourbon industry is really, really important to us. And as they were saying, we are kind of the Napa Valley of the bourbon industry. What wine did to Napa is what bourbon is doing for us, and it has been a huge economic engine for us. I think I can just keep going the wrong way here. A little bit more. I think Eric told you a little bit about that, so I don't want to go into it, but we've been fortunate as a small town. We're one of those small towns that tend to make a lot of lists. We're a historic downtown district. Every building, all 300 buildings, is on the National Register of Historic Places, so we're very historic for those people. We have a booming business. We have 62 manufacturing facilities in Bardstown, Kentucky. A lot of that is the distilling industry, but the majority of our industries come from the automotive industry. We are on the automotive corridor of the U.S., going from north down to south. We sit on Interstate 65, Interstate 75. The Ford truck plant is right next to us. Toyota is 2 hours away from us. They make all the Camrys, they make Rangers, they make the new Ford 250s, and then we also have the Corvette plant in Bowling Green, just miles away. So we are pretty valid as far as it comes, and not just distillery, but also in the automotive industry as well too. So what I like to tell everyone, decades and decades ago, you know, when you were saying you were from a small town, they were thinking small town, Mayberry, you got a goofy old deputy with a gun with one bullet, you got Otis who locks themselves in the jail anymore, and that is honestly what so many people had a perception of small town America at. And it was very, very discouraging for me because I'm from a small town, born and raised. My town right now is 14,000. I was raised in a town of 800. I went to college at the university in Kentucky, but then I came back home because I wanted to continue my experience in small town America. I am bottom line, no less nothing than a small town girl. But so many people were always talking about Mayberry, Mayberry, Mayberry. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not your Mayberry anymore, because what you see today so many times is the Hallmark channels and the things that they are showing on television. I'm having some issues with my button up here. There we go. Hallmark Channel movies. So when you think of it, how many watch these Hallmark Channel movies? Honestly, I am excited about them all coming back on again. I'm one of those goofy people that have to watch them all. But before you had Mayberry, now what do you find on these most popular Hallmark Channel movies? Small towns. Here's a scenario. Small town girl goes away, big city, has a great life. She has to come back home for something. An event's going on, they're selling the hotel, she's coming back, and something goes wrong. In walks the old boyfriend from years ago. He's the hero, he makes the way, and then she falls in love with him. She ends up falling in love, coming back to small town America. That is now small town America. That's what a lot of people think. I actually have notes written on my hand. Any of you all watch This Is Us? Big television show, and these are the things that you see. Before, small towns didn't really have the reputation like that they have now. But This Is Us for the other day was in a small town. And they said, small towns aren't for everyone at the episode. Kevin was talking to another girl. Absolutely right. But then the girl from the small town came back and said, maybe not, but people in a small town share a destiny. And I think that is just so important to know, because we're all in the same small town world, and we all do share a destiny, and we all do care. But that's the image that's now being portrayed more and more on television, in movies, and they have really romanticized small towns. And as a small town girl, it makes me incredibly happy for that to happen. So you can live large in a small town. And I'm here to tell you that I live large in a small town. You can live large in a small town. For instance, you can have your coffee shop. You can do your, you can own your own business. You can, I guess I'm doing something wrong back here. I keep looking back there. But anyhow, you can live large in a small town. You can have your music, your gatherings, here we go, your authenticity. There are several things that make your small town special. And we all do this. We all do this every day, unless you're a chamber person, a Main Street person, the mayor of your town, the governor of your state. At some point in time, you have an opportunity to promote what is going on in your small town. So the authenticity is so different from so many other things that you do. That is one of the most important things. Whether you are a historic community, whether or not you're a community that has recreation, whether or not you're a community still of farming, whether or not you're an energy development, whether it be the oil, the gas, the wind farms, You have the opportunity to be authentic. What's so different about so many small towns is that a lot of people try to be something that they're not. And I always have people telling me, why don't we build a water park? Or why don't we develop whitewater rafting down a river that we have? And you know what? It's hard for me to try to go out and promote these things because those are things that are not authentic to us. They're not authentic to what Bardstown is. They're not authentic to what the Kentucky and the region that I am in. And it's very hard to do that. So to be successful and to be someone who's really moving your community along, it's really good to truly be authentic to who you are. You do have the opportunity to make a difference, and this is truly one of my favorite things. How many places can you go living in a big city to, honestly, you can be the mayor of your town. You can be on the school board. You can be part of the groups that makes all the planning and zoning decisions. They're going to move your community forward. You can do that. You have the opportunity to make a difference. And it's those people in those regards that happen in small towns that make it so special too. So being an opportunity to make a difference is something that is so real in a small town. Affordability. Now, affordability is something that we've talked about many times. Ben talked about it, we've talked about it, and it is so true because not only is it affordable to live in a small town, but you have options. It's so interesting when I have a client that comes in, whether they're bringing a manufacturing facility in, maybe they're starting a small business, maybe they're coming in as a doctor at the hospital. I have an opportunity to give them choices. You have a lot of choices in a small town, whether it's a farmhouse, whether it's a downtown loft, maybe it's a farm. We've had some people, when Fort Knox had a change, probably about 10 years ago, and Fort Knox was the recipient of bringing the Human Resources Command out of Alexandria, Virginia. These are people who lived in Washington, and they were coming and they needed to live in our community because we're right next to Fort Knox. They were amazed. They were thrilled at the opportunity for what they lived in Alexandria, in the DC area, what they could get in the state of Kentucky near my community. And they were so happy. They could buy large farms. They could buy a beautiful historic house downtown. You know, they really got a good bang for their buck. That was really, really important for them to make a decision that they had to change their life, unfortunately. But when they changed their life, their lives got a little better in the regard of their housing opportunities. So that is certainly one of the things that makes small towns sexy. A thriving town center, how fun is just to go through these small towns. You know, you've got your baskets hanging, your tree-lined streets, your small towns, your festivals, your gathering places. Every small town needs a gathering space like they did, 100 years ago. It's where everyone came. It's where everyone sold goods. That's why farmers markets are popping back up in most of small towns, and they're being very, very successful. Or just a town square where you're holding a festival or an event or something like that. One of the things that makes small town sexy is just that town center, and it's that feel you get. There's nothing worse than all the bypasses that have bypassed small town America. If I'm driving along and they say bypass, take this way, you won't have to go through downtown. The last thing I'm going to do is take that. I'm going to go straight through the downtown. I want to see the community. I want to see the courthouses. I want to see the city halls. I want to see the town. It's the heart and the soul of a town. And that is truly important for any success of a small town, and it's thriving town centers. By keeping your banks there, by keeping your post offices there, as many things as you can keep downtown to keep that thriving town center. Safety and security. Ben talked about that before. We've heard that a couple of times. That's another thing that makes small town sexy. I have no trouble when my children were young sending them on their bicycles to go to school, or walking, 4 or 5 blocks away to be able to go see a friend's house, or trick-or-treating at night and feeling very safe about it. That's another thing that makes small town sexy. It is the safety and the security that we all feel in our communities. and it's the people. And you know, there are people scattered from coast to coast, and we're all the same, although the town's names are a little bit different. You've got your doctors and your nurses and your, you know, the city council and the small business people. These are people who have chosen your town to live in. They have chosen to make their homes there. They have chosen to have their families there. They have chosen to invest everything they have in that new coffee shop, or they have chosen to spend a lifetime of service being an elected official. It's the people that makes small town sexy. Anybody ever been to Celebration, Florida? It is literally, it's a town that Disney built. As in the Disney way, Disney put everything popular in a small town, the best of the best, and they built a town right outside of Disney World, and it's called Celebration. I've been there many, many times. And Celebration is this perfect town with the perfect manicured streets and the perfect school systems and the parks. And they went around and they researched, and then they talked to people, and they built this town to where the garbage people go behind all the houses to the alleyway to pick up your garbage. You don't have garbage. The parks are central. The whole center of the town all surrounds a park center. There's water. It's just the communities and the business are perfect. But Disney felt it important. If Disney feels important to make this perfect little small town, then that's how we know what the importance in the heartstrings of small town America is to people. And I truly believe that big fish can swim in small ponds. Toyota was our first success story in Kentucky. Toyota came from Japan, came from Tokyo, looking for a place to put their Camry plant, one of the largest new first ventures that they had in this part of the country. They looked all over. They looked in the big cities. They looked places all over the country, had 101 places that they went. They ended up in Georgetown, Kentucky, on a 300-acre spot. Georgetown at that town wasn't 25,000 people, a very small college there, but they ended up locating in Georgetown. And when we had a chance, I was with the governor's team at the time and worked on the project. And when they finally, just sitting down talking like, why Georgetown? You could have gone anywhere. And they said, we like wide open spaces, and we like to be around people and know the people are going to work. They had heard that the farmers' work ethic was unlike nothing else. And at that time, you know, farming was pretty much on the downturn in this part of the state. And they had heard that the best person that you can hire for a job in the state of Kentucky is a farmer. I mean, we know if your John Deere breaks down in your field, you're not going to call AAA. What do? You go out and you figure out how to fix it. And the Japanese knew that, and they had heard that, and they wanted the work ethic of the people who worked in the farm, had the work ethic, that you had no vacation days, you didn't have that, you're just a hard worker for yourself. They wanted those type of people to build their vehicles. And they've been happy ever since. They've opened up 250 supplier operations in the state of Kentucky that supply to Toyota. We're the recipient of 10 Japanese companies in our town right now. But that was the reason. They wanted that small town feel, they wanted the green space, and they wanted those types of individuals to build their vehicles. Thai Summit is a project that we opened up a couple years ago. I was very fortunate to be with the governor and cutting the ribbon on this, and this is a project that started on the state. It's a project from Bangkok. And I tell this story just because it's a fun story. They looked at 50 different places to put this facility, and it's a big manufacturing operation, a forging operation. They're doing some parts for Tesla, Ford, and some other things like that. Found out before they came in, because you know, a lot of these projects come in by dark of night. And so I did a little Google search and realized the owner of this facility was one of the top richest women in Asia. Her name is Dr. Somporn. It's 35 letters, I can't pronounce it, so we call her Dr. Somporn. And so she came in, and we knew she was coming in. And I said, we've got to do the best we can. I pulled the mayor, the judge. We had the state governor's office came in. The economic development people were all there. we did a run through the day before. We got to do this right. Let's go out and show them the land. There was no road. We had to take 4-wheel trucks out to do it, and everything was perfect. It went off flawless. That morning we woke up, the entire town was fogged in. It had rained all night, it was fogged in, and we couldn't get our trucks on the property. Any of you economic development people are in this, you just know right then, everything is going through your mind. It's the worst thing ever. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? They're going to hate us. They're never going to come back. Same thing. Everything was going through. So I get this idea. I'm going to call a friend of mine who has a four-wheelers dealership. And I'm like, I will get the most pimped out 4 wheels, and I'll put them in the 4 wheels, and we'll take them out on the site in these 4-wheel RZR vehicles. And that guy said, yeah, I'll take care of you. I got you. So I said, here's where they need to be delivered. I'm going to be with these people at breakfast. Please have them there ready to go. And they said, fine. So here we come in all of our black SUVs, rolling into my industrial park, in the parking lot. I look out the window, and there's a set of 3 4-wheels vehicles that are painted camouflage for deer hunters. None of them had heating, none of them had air conditioning, none of them had tops on them. And I'm calling that, he said, that's all I got, that's all I had. I'm sorry, somebody else, it's deer season, everybody's got them, that's all I had. And I thought, I'm going to put one of the richest women in Asia in this 4-wheel deer hunting vehicle that has no top, it's raining, and it's 30 degrees, and it has no heat. So I'm like, I might as well just go home. I mean, I honestly wanted to get my truck and just go home and go back to bed and not even realize it even happened. But anyway, we put her in there. We had the county judge sits on one side, the mayor's on the other, and wasn't enough room for me, which I was kind of glad, honestly. But so I'm sit there with the governor's staff, and we're watching them all go off, and we're just waving like, we'll see ya. And hopefully I wasn't going to be there when she got back because I was going to hide. She came back and had the biggest smile on her face, and she had fun. She had fun. She got out, she said, I have never done anything like that. That was great. And, it was so fun to do this. Well, I'm like, well, how was the property? Oh, it was good too. But that ride was so much fun, and we had a good time, and I can't believe that we were able actually to do this. Long story short, they locate in Bardstown. So I go over to visit her. She invites me over to visit her facilities in Bangkok. Realize that she owns a factory that makes those things and golf carts. So she thought we had done this great R&D and researched her and had a vehicle like she makes, put her in her vehicle so she will feel right at home. We had no clue. It worked out, and they're Thai Summit, and now they're located in Bardstown. Just a fun story to share. Energy development, nothing more important, as you all know, here in the state of North Dakota, what that means for communities anymore. Right now, we're seeing a lot more solar farms popping up in Kentucky. We'd love to have wind farms. They say Kentucky is the least windy state in the country, so I'm not thinking we're going to have any wind farms anytime soon. But energy development is really what's taking a lot of small towns to a whole nother level now. We used to be in the coal mining business in Kentucky. You've all heard of Appalachia, Kentucky. It's a true thing. Not, even before what's happened now, in Appalachia, Kentucky, it was pretty serious as far as what was happening down there. The amount of impoverished people and where they were living and all that. It's bad enough having to go into the coal mines. Now the coal mines are shut down. And now we're wondering what we're going to do with all these people. But that's how important that we know that energy is to small towns and what you're doing and how we're diversifying it. And it's starting to be much, much more important for people outside of North Dakota or Indiana, who has thousands of acres in these small communities they've made so much wealth on these types of energy developments. It's the new economic for lots of small towns across the country, and so many of them are benefiting from it now. But what we can't forget, and so many have said, the sexy thing is recruiting a company. The governor knows that there's nothing more fun than doing a groundbreaking, doing a ribbon cutting and opening a brand new manufacturing facility, a new hospital, or something like that. that's the fun part of economic development, when you've worked really hard and then you're doing it. What we remember now, and what we have to remember for our small communities is those are the big wins. And those big wins are there, but they're not there as often. What we have to realize that the majority of what happens and what's going to be the future and continue to be the future in small town America are our small business people. But unfortunately, we don't think of them like we should think of them. And we don't do that. We don't do a really good job in Kentucky very hard. I can go out, recruit a Thai Summit, give them property tax abatements, give them tax credit incentives to come and do these things. But I turn around and I have 4 or 5 small businesses that want to come in. I don't have those same tricks of the trade tools in my toolbox. And so as a community, in our community, we're really, really starting to get better at that. We're starting to realize that the growth in small towns, it's not just those big wins and those 100 or 200 people companies, but they are with our small towns. And you have to realize that so many of our kids now, and I have 2 of them, they're 30 and 34 now, the last thing that they wanted to do is come in and work at a distillery or one of our factories. They wanted to work for themselves. They wanted to be those entrepreneurs. They wanted to start their own business, whether it be a financial organization like an Edward Jones, or maybe it's a coffee shop, or maybe it's just another business that they're telecommuting at. Right now, it's so important, and I say this so often to the mayors and the judges that we consult with, that before you do anything, make sure you're prepared. Make sure you're prepared in infrastructure for all of this, because that's what's happening now. We have Humana, which is a large hospital entity and healthcare facility in Louisville. They do so much of their business right now telecommuting. We have 150 people in our small town that work for Humana that never leave their house. They're telecommuting, they're doing all their work online, and that's the way so many things are going. But we couldn't just allow them to have our jobs and say, here it is. We had to upgrade our infrastructure. We had to be better at a lot of fiber that was putting through the counties. Not all these people just lived in the city. But we as a community had to go in and be better. And we have to go in, if we're going to keep up with the times, the one thing that we all have to do is make sure our infrastructure is there for the next great businesses that are coming in, because those next great businesses, you may be doing them from your dining room table. And that's the way it's going with these young people as well, too. I can't go in our coffee shop downtown that I have a set of 5 or 6 coders that are sitting there, and they're doing their work at the coffee shop because they code for a living, and they can code anywhere. But they couldn't do that if your community wasn't set up for that. And communities have to be ready to do that, to be able to be successful. A lot of new faces. Ben and I are 100% on the same page when we talk about this today. There are new faces, and some of my favorite ones are the reinventors. And the reinventors, what I mean by the reinventors, these are the people that for a lifetime have had another job. And I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. We've just gotten some people from the LA area that have moved to our region. And I asked them, I'm like, I'm so honored that you chose us as a place to live, but why on earth did you pick Bardstown, Kentucky to relocate? And they said, we are reinventors. And I said, well, what are you doing now? And they said, we got tired of the traffic. We got tired of the weather. We got tired of the earthquakes. We just got tired of moving at a pace we didn't want to move at anymore. That's just not who we were. We became older, our kids were away, we wanted to do something else, and we wanted to come and reinvent ourselves. So they moved to Bardstown. They bought about 300 acres outside of town, and they built a winery. They planted the grapes, and they're starting their own little winery. And now they do farmers markets on the weekends with some of their grapes and some other produce. They just wanted to slow down. Those are the reinventors. There's people at some point in time just want to reinvent themselves. Doesn't matter what they've been doing for a lifetime. There are other options out there, other ways to reinvent yourselves. A lot of people like to slow down and go to a small town. The retirees and our boomers, tons of retirees are moving to small town America as long as they are close to grandkids. And we're finding that out in small town America. Everywhere I go, I hear so many people say, oh, we're moving back here, or we're moving to Danville, or we're moving to Indiana, or we're moving to West Virginia. They are moving to small towns because they want to get closer to their children, their grandchildren. If you have an airport close by, and if you have a community college or a college nearby, just because you're retiring doesn't mean you're gonna sit in your lazy boy all day and watch TV. That's not what they're wanting to do. They're wanting to stay involved. They're wanting to volunteer. I probably have some of my best volunteers on the committees that I have in Bardstown are from my baby boomer retiree people. They're still so smart. They had the opportunity to retire, but they just didn't want to sit. They wanted to do other things. And so retirees are finding it. They're finding the lifestyle there good. They're finding it to be affordable also. And they're loving small town America. So if you find these people, check your Chamber of Commerce's, check the cities, find out who's moving in. A great resource are your real estate agents. They know who's coming in. Invite those people in. Have some kind of a reception for these people to know who they are and find out what their love is. Find out what they really love to do, what they want to do, and they can be some of your next great resources. So it's incredible to have these retirees and these boomers. And we talked already about the boomerangers. And the boomerangers is just like a boomerang, you know, you throw it, it's gonna come back. And those are the kids, and I call them kids, but they're not kids right now anymore. But those are the adults that have grown up in your town. They had their education. They went away, they went to college. Maybe they got their first career, they had their first job. Many times they've just gotten married, they've had their children, and what do they want to do? They want to be closer to family. They want their family to be the ones helping them to raise their kids or their dogs or whatever. They want to come back. These are the same people. I was one of those. At my high school graduation, when I threw my cap up after graduation, I was out of town before it hit the floor. And I thought, I am not coming back here. I'm done with this town. And college graduation, I threw mine up in college graduation, and I was right back home in my small town before it hit. You're finding a lot of those people are. If you're making adjustments to your community, if you're doing things that really will entice these kids to come back, a lot of them want to come back. How nice is it to have the same teachers that taught them to be teaching their kids, for them to ride their bikes in the same places they rode their bikes, to be on the same Little League baseball teams. They have a good feeling, so many of them have a good feeling about where they were raised, their lifestyle, and those good feelings about small town that they want their kids to have that same opportunity. So these kids are boomeranging back. But can small towns be sexy to our youth? And when I say that, I mean, it's true. There's nothing to do. I feel isolated, and I'm embarrassed that I'm still living here. How many have heard this and are still hearing this? But how do you compete with a cool city? How do you compete with a Starbucks on every single corner, or a city that doesn't sleep, or the football and the basketball games from the universities, and being able to have stores open, they don't close at 5 o'clock in the afternoon? How do you make your small town as cool as the cities out there? You engage these kids before they leave. And what I mean by that, they've got to know what's in your town. So many kids, we've got a young leader group program that came to my office one time, and it is literally in the epicenter of town. We had one of those beautiful roundabouts that go around our building, and they came downtown to have a meeting. They said, I didn't know we had a drugstore downtown. And I was just shocked. They said, we don't come downtown. We go to school, we go home, and we do whatever we do, but we really don't have a reason to come downtown. So you've got to engage and you've got to educate. You can't expect that these kids know what's going on in your community. They really don't have, I mean, most of the adults in your community often don't even know what's going on. So you've really got to engage them. In a couple ways we're doing this that was really cool. And I'm sure you've got some of these here, so I hate to replicate any efforts of conversation, but the best things we're doing now is a teacher externship program. You always hear the internships for kids, but during the summer months, these teachers apply. And they get to go to work in the community, and they work in our factories, and it's around Robin. They may work at a factory, they may work at the Starbucks, they may work at a retail store, they may work at a hospital. But we put these sets of teachers throughout the community, in our community, because what they're doing is learning. They're learning all about the community, because who's with our kids more than anybody? It's the teachers. And if they have the opportunity to know what's going on, then they're going to teach our kids what's going on, because it's just hard for us to have that time like we used to with all the ball games and all the things that's going on with our kids anymore. Teach the teachers, and the teachers can teach the kids. That is hugely important to us. Another thing is apprenticeships. We all have heard about apprenticeships and workforce investment. That's something that's very, very popular, but we're trying to get these kids in the workforce right now. While they're sophomores and juniors, try to get them enabled to see what all is available in town. And it's really interesting that we take them in the distilleries now. Because they're not 18, they can't work in a distillery. So we're trying to change those rules a little bit and not have them in the bourbon production, but have them other places. But they have no idea that there are chemists, that there are marketing people, that there are engineers, that there are places like that and positions like that that are in these distilleries and in some of these companies. Because, you know, when you drive by an industrial park, if you're not in the business of economic development, you really have no clue, if you don't have somebody that works there, what literally goes on behind those walls. They're very, you know, they go to work, they do what they need to do, and then they go home. But you have no idea the skills that are actually in every one of those buildings. You know, whether it's, you know, computer programming, all these things. And it was very eye-opening, these kids. Like, I didn't know we had jobs here. I thought you had to go to Louisville or Lexington or Indianapolis or Nashville to have jobs like that. And we were able to educate the kids and say, no, there are some great jobs in this community. We just have to let them know about it. Young Leaders Program, probably the greatest invention in any Chamber of Commerce has ever done. And you know, you're taking, in our regards, 30 kids every year, and every month you're training them on something different. They stay with the mayor and the county judge. They go to Frankfurt, our state capital. They go into our factories. They just go all over, and they're learning all about the community. This is a very, very popular program. It's so popular that parents have been so angry with us that their kids were not able to get in it because it's only for so many people. But this is a way to showcase your communities to the youth, who hopefully will be the same kids that once they graduate will have an interest in coming back. This is one new program, and I have to share this. It's something we're really proud of. We were finding that in our area technology centers, our old vocational schools is what we used to call it, state funded through our local school systems, we were teaching drafting, auto mechanics, nursing, some other programs like that for many, many, many years. The industry saying, hey, that's not what we're needing now. It's changing. It's, you know, the workforce, we're looking for mechanical engineers and maintenance technicians and things like that. These are the jobs that we cannot find anymore, and these are the kinds of trainings that we need. So we listened to them, and we changed it around a little bit. Then we had an angel that just fell into our laps in Nelson County. He's a pilot. He's a former Forbes 500 manager of a very large company who had retired. He retired to start a winery in Nelson County. Segue into this story. He decided, because he was a pilot and he knows that aviation is so big and the aeronautics program is so big, that we have UPS World Hub is with us, and FedEx is in Kentucky as well too. Lots of jobs in aviation there, logistics and others. He went out and bought a plane kit, a $150,000 plane kit. And he had the kids from the 3 schools, we have 3 schools, county, city, and a Catholic parochial system, have to write letters and apply for this program. He took in 30 students to do a new program. They spend half a day in aviation school at our airport, and it's taught by a former UPS pilot. A pilot who's also a mechanical engineer is how he started. And these kids are going to have a degree when they leave, and then they go into school after that and on to college. But they're going to have a degree doing this aviation. When the plane is finished, it's already sold for $250,000. So now they've netted $100,000 to be able to do the next plane. Totally different, out-of-the-box thinking. It took somebody coming in from the outside to show us what we can do. And this program has already gotten a lot of national attention. And these kids are incredible. Now they've talked them into being able to get a pilot's license. So now they're all in pilot school, learning how to fly this particular plane. But yet again, a little bit of innovation that came in, and you can do these things in a small town. The other thing we're working on right now is a small business venture to where 4-H groups got some kids and some schools, has some kids that really wanted to do some work downtown. They're almost finished with their college credits, and they don't really have anything to do in the afternoon, and they just don't want to go home. So what we've done in our community, and tell me if you all have this problem, our stores close at 5 o'clock. We're a tourism town now. We have 200,000 visitors visit our community every year. Our stores close at 5 o'clock. Our stores are not open on Sundays, and now they're not open on Mondays. It's just because they're mom and pops. They say, we're tired, we don't want to work every day, we can't find anybody to work. So we're putting this program together, and what it's going to be is the fact that these kids are going to learn business. They're going to learn retail. They're going to learn merchandising. They're going to learn marketing. And we're going to put these kids as a supplemental employees in each of these businesses to allow them to stay open past 5 o'clock, to work on the weekends, and then to work on Mondays as well too. But they're learning a trade. They're learning small business. They're learning how to own their own business and not just work for somebody else. And the other thing that this is doing, it's bringing these kids downtown to where they couldn't find downtown if I had given them a map. They just didn't come downtown. There wasn't anything for them downtown. Now they're going to be coming downtown. Hopefully their friends are going to say, oh, you know, Ben's working at the coffee shop downtown. Let's go see Ben. And they're going to come downtown too. So we are hoping for this trickle-down effect with this small business program with these kids. So small business and the kids, there are ways to work them together in your community. Show and tell, this came from a client that I worked with in Texas. When kids were home for their class reunions or they were home for their families, this bank in Texas would rent this big charter bus, and they would have a big reception, and they would invite all these expats to come and have a reception and go on a tour of their town. And the point is that they wanted them to come in so they can show them the new subdivisions, the new Walmart, or Targets, or the new pool, the new recreation apartment, the new ball field that we built. These kids are only coming in for a few days, and they're going to go back to their other communities where they live. But they wanted to capture them. They wanted to capture them for 2 hours and say, give me 2 hours. We'll have a reception, some food, and then I'm going to throw you on a bus, and I'm going to show you the town that you didn't even know existed anymore. And they started doing that, and it was interesting, the response that the bank got. Of course, the banks are interested too because they're hoping they're going to be new clients to them. But what a simple, simple little thing that you can do to entice people to come back to learn a little bit more about your community and how it's grown and how it's shaped. So the survey says these, and I put this up there because we, as economic development professionals, chamber professionals, we thought our kids coming home, they wanted more bars. They wanted parties, places to do parties. They wanted Starbucks on every corner. We thought that's what all these next generation kids wanted to get them home. That's not what they wanted. What they wanted were recreational activities, specifically volleyball leagues. Would have never thought about that. They want more family-friendly amenities. Many of them are bringing their kids with them. and they want things for their kids to do. They want more Wi-Fi gathering places in the community, and they want more single-family housing that's available to them. That's what they wanted. Here we're all saying, oh, let's put these cool beer fests on, or let's see if we can recruit when the coffee shops do. That wasn't what they wanted. They wanted things that were family-oriented, and it really got us changing our minds about what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and what the next phase is. Working with the realtors, working with the city. We're expanding all of our Wi-Fi to have all free Wi-Fi downtown, just so they can take their laptops in anywhere they want to do and do things. We were wrong. We had to ask before we really knew what was going on. We talked about the brain drain and the brain gain. Let's not forget another demographic. We do really well in in high school, by putting together classes for those going on to college. We've got those special classes where you get dual credits and all that. What are we doing for those that are going to stay there? We know by the time they're in the 8th and 9th grade if they're stayers. Stayers are the ones that once they graduate, they're going to get a job, they're going to stay in their community in whatever job they're going to take, whether they're going to continue the family farm, the family business, or they're going to go to work for somewhere else. They're the stayers. What are we doing in the school system to work with them? We don't have to work to recruit them home. They're going to be there. Are we talking to them? Are we working with them? Are they our next fiscal court members, city council members? My county judge was a stayer. He never went to college, and he's running the county now and doing an incredible job. This is a whole group of students that are going to be there, and we need to find out what it is they want and get to them just as well as we're getting to the kids going to school. So these are top 10 lists, and I'm just going to blow through these because we've talked about these already. Invest in your infrastructure. Tell the world who you are. Look big online. Those economic development professionals here know we don't get half the visits we get anymore from clients because they're looking at us first online. They're on our websites. They're reading our newspapers online. They're seeing us online. Chances are we're already, narrowed down, and they haven't even seen our communities. Look as big as the big cities online. And if you don't know how to do this, hire a 14-year-old because they do. They know how to do it. They know how to get online and make you look good and keep all your information on there. Put it full of pictures, all the fun things, all the activities, everything that's going on in your community. Anyone can compete with anyone online. A 12,000 person town can compete with a 200,000 person town online because it's just making yourself look big online. First impressions are everything. Walk through your town, do an audit. Do an audit like you're seeing things in a whole nother set of glasses, not like you live there. Walk and see what you have. Is it clean? Do you have enough stores? What are people thinking? Do a walking audit of your town and see what it is that you think of it. Seeing yourselves as a visitor would see yourself. Gateways, welcome signs, all those things are hugely important. Shop at home, talked about that. I can't talk enough about that. These are people you went to school with. These are people that you go to church with. These are the people that own these stores that depend on you to shop at home. Engage the next generation, as we said. Encourage partnerships. When I say partnerships, I mean from everything to your extension office, to your Chamber of Commerce, to the mayor's office. The partnerships. We're small towns. We need to grow together and look and work where there are power numbers out there. And if we work as partnerships, that's how we're going to do better. I have Chamber, Main Streets, tourism, economic development all under me right now. We're working together and we're working strong together, and it works very well in our community. Review old, outdated ordinances. There was an ordinance in our town we found out you cannot walk down the sidewalk with an ice cream in your pocket. Did you know that? You can't with an ice cream cone in your pocket. You can't do that in Bardstown. You would be locked up. And we're looking at these ordinances like where they come. There was an ordinance on the books, bourbon capital of the world, that you can't drink after 5 or on Sundays. We're the bourbon capital of the world. We had to go in and change these things. Look at your ordinances. I mean, a lot of those things haven't been changed in decades. You'd probably be surprised what you might find. But go in. It's been a long time. Things have changed. Go in and look how you can change some of your ordinance to keep up with the times, to make your community grow and maybe think a little bit differently than they were thinking 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago when some of those ordinances were written. Never discount, talked about next generation, never discount the power of social media. If you are 40-year-old or under, unfortunately, you're not reading a newspaper. Chances are you're not listening to the radio stations or watching TV. You're getting every bit of your information on your telephone or on your laptop or on your smart tab or whatever. That's where they're getting the information, and that's where you need to be sending the information. Always, never discount the power of social media. Even though at my age, I'm 60, you know, sometimes it's the last thing that I think about. But we've got to start thinking like the ones who are coming in and starting to make the changes and make the difference in your community. And you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. Remember that. You don't get that first look at your town, that could be your make or break. What does that look like when you're coming in? And erase county lines. We talked about this earlier, so I'm not going to really harp on that. But have fun. Be authentic. This is God's country. Please don't drive through it like hell. Hondo, Texas. These are towns that are just fun, and I just love putting these things up. This is up in a small town in our community. Deer crossing, all roads anytime. And that's just who we are. I don't know if you can read this, but it says, welcome you, home of 1,700 friendly people and 5 old crabs. Just fun. These are just fun. And this is not too far from my house. This is Hartford, home of 2,000 happy people and a few sore heads. And that is so true about Hartford if you ever have go there. Dante, Virginia, I want to leave you with a kind of a motivational story before I get off here. But Dante, Virginia, I did a Skype with this community about a year ago. It's a town of 650 people. It was an old coal camp that absolutely went out, and they wanted to know what they could do. There were those people that still cared enough about their community to say, what can we do? We're dying. We're literally dying. And while no companies are coming there, and no manufacturing people are going to locate there, and probably there's not going to be a coffee shop opening up on the corner, these people got together and built their own strategic plan. They had $3,000 grant, and you know where $3,000 goes, not far. But they were able to build a new sign for their town. They were able to make, and it's hard to see, I don't know if it's up there, it's hard to see that they made this love structure out of metal. And it shows up on different things. It's like the mystery love where it shows up. And they take it all around. It spells out love, and it just makes people happy. And then they took an old train trestle that the coal used to go through, and they made it a biking path. They lit it and did that. In this little teeny tiny town with $3,000, they made these little things happen. And it was just so special. And I just think the world that it doesn't matter how smart you are, it's those little things that we can all do in our community to make us feel good. Small towns is about the feeling that you have. And with that, very quickly, before I leave, I'm just going to leave you with one passage in my book that kind of sums up the passion I have, and hopefully the passion that you all have as well, too. And it's this. I find myself back to that one essential question. What is small town sexy? First, small town is a feeling. It's that feeling that comes over you when you close your eyes and you think about your life there. It's a nurturing calm that for an instant takes you back to a good place, a place where the air is clean, the sky's blue, and not measured by size, but by the quality of life that you lead. Second, small town sexy is people. We're scattered from coast to coast, Kentucky to North Dakota, wherever. There is a connection, a kindred spirit, if you will, that takes us back to this wonderful small town society. So who makes up small town sexy? We're mothers, fathers, teachers, students, doctors, volunteers, and entrepreneurs. We are rich snobs, and we are rednecks. We have GEDs, MBAs, we're retired, and some on unemployment. We live downtown, on farms, in mobile homes, some at the end of dirt roads. We drive cars, trucks, hybrids, four-wheelers, and we have been known to drive a tractor to our senior prom. True story. My mom was so proud with those pictures. We have old money, new money. Some of us have no money at all. We're all the people that make small towns sexy. Small towns are some of the most inviting places you'll ever go. They're the places where people still ride bikes, not because it's the green thing to do, but because it allows you to see things that can't be seen from the windows of our cars. Small towns where the smell of freshly mowed grass lingers for what seems like blocks, and where people know your name in the local hardware stores, and all you have to do to pay is say charge it. In small towns, you'll find old signs still painted on the sides of barns, stores that close at 5 o'clock, and there is a church on every corner. It's like that favorite song playing on the radio. You just can't get it off your mind, no matter how hard you try or how far you run. They're not ritzy, glitzy, simple and genuine, just like the people who live there. Small in size, but enormous in spirit, and always alive and full of personality. But let's face it, chances are many of you will never move to a small town. That's absolutely no problem. We understand and we love you anyway. But if you don't plan to live in small town America, let me encourage you to do the next best thing. Step away from your computer, turn off the TV, get out of the office and get away. Get away to the amazing byways of America and experience the wonderful world of small towns. Life happens fast. Don't let it pass you by. I'm not sure I've lived my best life yet because I've got a lot of life worth living. But what I am sure about is that the life that I'll look forward to living will be in small town America. And that, my dear friends from North Dakota, I think is small town sexy. Thank you.
Way to go, Kim. That was fantastic, sharing that. And small in size, enormous in spirit. It's a great takeaway for us as we near the end of our incredible conference. I want to just share a few closing comments with all of you, and then when I do that, and then Michele will come up. But I'm going to start by saying something that you've never heard at a conference before, and that is that we're 45 minutes ahead of schedule. But let me just start. The first thing I like to do is start with some gratitude. And of course, there's so many people to thank to hold a conference of this size and this scale, with this many breakouts, this many panelists, the staff, the caterers, the team from the Bismarck Events Center, the City of Bismarck, virtually everybody in the Department of Commerce, 28 state agencies that were here supporting and helping out, mayors, planners, city commissioners, county, township folks that were here, 250 students. But I like to think of everybody that was here, regardless of their role and who they came, are all part of Team North Dakota, because Team ND is a group of people that all cares and has a passion about where the future can go. And we certainly felt that. I certainly did during the entire 2.5 days with all the people here. The energy, the positive, the forward momentum, great things happening in small towns, people caring deeply. As somebody who grew up in a town that had 400 people, what Kim was saying really resonated with me. And you should know about Arthur, the way we get to 400 was we counted the 100 in the Good Samaritan home. That's how we got to 100. Because we had to, because otherwise Hunter would have been bigger than us right down the road. But anyway, we, Michele Comer, Sean Kessel, James Lehman, the leadership in Commerce, Emily Brown, Allie, the whole team that helped put this conference together and everything, all of our amazing people that were here. It's just really incredible. So let's give one round of applause for everybody in Team ND. Lightning recap. Main Street Initiative, very crystal clear, 3 pillars to it, and we've had incredible panels and speakers supporting all 3 of these pillars. Number 1, 21st century workforce. Biggest challenge we have as a state. It's not about creating jobs, it's about filling jobs. People can choose where they want to live and then figure out how to get the job. You've heard it from a dozen speakers in the last 3 days. So again, thanks and big shout out to the North Dakota Workforce Council and the leadership, Michele Comer and others that worked on that, doing great work, reviving that organization after about 15, 20 years of dormancy, putting together a really great 30-plus point plan for what we can do. We have a roadmap. We can all work on it together. And one of the key things is us building communities that people want to live in if we're going to be competitive with other states. That leads to the second pillar, healthy, vibrant communities. This is everything from from the Surgeon General down to having walking paths so people could stay active. There's a whole element of things around health, vibrancy, arts and culture, great breakouts on that, great people that are here, fun ideas that don't cost a lot of money, don't take big grants, but things that you can do. You saw and heard some of that from some of the award winners that were on stage. Smart, efficient infrastructure. I got to say, this gets into math class. We have to take a look at the world differently than we have in the past. We have to understand that some of the growth that we've had, the traditional concentric ring growth, that the old decaying middle is subsidizing the edge because we're not generating enough property taxes at the school, the city, or the park board district to pay for all the new stuff on the edge. And so what we've effectively got is Charles Marone from strongtowns.org. He spoke at the last conference. Write it down, check it out, strongtowns.org. He's got an essay out there. It's called The Growth Ponzi Scheme. It's what's happened across America. It's not something that was unique to North Dakota, but we take the revenues coming out of the decaying core and we use it to build the new edge. And at some point, then that Ponzi scheme, like all Ponzi schemes, collapses. We have an opportunity to reinvest into the places where we have existing infrastructure, and bringing private capital to existing infrastructure is the most fabulous thing for taxpayers because you don't have to build one more linear foot of sewer, water, road. You don't have to hire more police or firemen, and you get a high return on taxpayer investment with private capital coming to existing infrastructure. Second best thing is public infrastructure, whether it's prairie dog money or whether it is a school building. If you have an elementary school that's going to be built new, if you can put it inside of your city where there's existing infrastructure, that can also be positive return on investment for shareholders. The worst investment we can make is public infrastructure going to greenfield. Because when you take a new elementary school or high school and put it way out on the edge, thinking that you're saving money on the land, then the park board, the city, and everybody that has to chase it, and all the people that come with it, there's negative return on investment, and not just on day one, really for decades and decades afterwards, because even when it all gets filled in with single-family homes around a new school, that's not generating enough revenue to pay for all the services that went to create it in the first place. So it creates an ongoing subsidy. And I'm not sure if I should be scared or not, but I feel people closing in on me on Halloween. Is that it? Very big people. Okay, but reminder to the very big people, we're ahead of schedule. I hope they don't have a hook. Okay, so we have, so three things: 21st century workforce, healthy, vibrant communities, smart, efficient infrastructures, private and public capital going to infill, and when it goes to infill, if it's a mixed use versus a single use, that even boosts your return even higher. So, and I'd say the one last thing I'd say on that, we have a lot of planners in North Dakota that seem to understand that. We have a lot of planners that were here at this conference. I run into them, and they're all like, we agree, we agree, we agree. Then they go back to their cities and they run into the engineering department. And the engineering department's focused on still building communities for automobiles, not for people. They want to build for automobiles, and a lot of the federal dollars are about building communities for automobiles. And we ought to think about renaming every engineering department in the state of North Dakota, and any engineering firm that consults with a small town. If you're so small that, which is most of our towns, you don't have an engineering department, you work with an engineering firm, many of which are here because they had booths and they helped sponsor our conference. But we should rename those engineering departments design departments, because it's not how do we engineer more roads or how do we engineer more infrastructure, it's how do we design communities that people want to live in. We have a design challenge in front of us, and we have an opportunity to work together to do what Bardstown and what other communities are doing around the country. We can design cities that are different than what the pattern has been. We have to turn the corner and start designing for a future where we've got economic cities that people want to live in, and then amazing things can happen. So, and we can do that. And again, as we said over the course of the conference, most of the people to make those decisions are actually in this room, which is so cool about North Dakota, and one of the reasons why we're grateful to be here. That was the Main Street 3 pillars. Keynote speakers. This was awesome. I'm going to just recap the challenges that they left us. Vice Admiral, Surgeon General, Dr. Adams really talked about the connectivity between community health and economic prosperity. If you don't have healthy people, then you can't have healthy employees. If you don't have healthy people, you end up spending not just states and communities, but actual businesses are spending more and more of their business dollars back on the health portion of it. And so the whole economic cycle gets better. In America, we're approaching some of the highest percentage of GDP in the world goes towards healthcare in America. And as soon as that statistic is said, immediately we start talking about what's wrong with the way we do health insurance and who's insured and who's uninsured. And that's been the debate for 10 years. It's always about insurance. And we're never talking about health. We're talking about health insurance or coverage or what's covered or not covered. And we got giant elections, presidential elections, swinging on whether or not you would actually who gets covered or not. And to me, I get confused about this because we don't really have a system of health care. We have a system of repaying and taking care of people after they've become sick. And then we take a look at, well, why is Copenhagen spend lower? Denmark's about this, got a population like Minnesota, but why we say, why would a country like Denmark have such a lower percentage of health costs than us? Well, they must be doing something better with insurance. It has nothing to do with insurance. It has to do with the presentation we saw the other day where like over 50% of the people are commuting on bicycles, and they've built cities where people actually move because of the $4 trillion that we spend $4 trillion a year out of a $19 trillion economy. The $4 trillion that we spend on healthcare, 1 trillion of that, a trillion with a T, 1 trillion of it, 1/4 of the $4 trillion we spend on healthcare goes to pay for chronic diseases like diabetes, like heart health related things, like obesity, that all have a huge reduction if people are actually more mobile, if people actually say it's okay to walk as opposed to I'm mad I can't park by the door. If I'm sad I have to wait 30 seconds for an elevator versus if I took the stairs. And so it's again, we have a built environment that includes, in a country that is the richest in the world, that has created an expectation that something's wrong if we have to walk. If we have to walk a block, something is wrong. Call my city commissioner. I couldn't park by in front of the door. So we have to rethink the thing, because if that's the expectation we want, then our healthcare costs are just going to go up and up, particularly as we have a doubling of the people in our country over the age 65 as we have that happen. So just designing a city where there's utility to walking. The walk score, which has been talked about, walk score, you can look up an address for any address in anywhere you want to in America, will give you the walk score. And the walk score gives you no points if something is more than a mile away. It gives you some points for things between 3/4 and a mile, more points if it's a half a mile to 3/4, more points if it's a 1/4 to a half, and full points if it's within a 1/4 of a mile, with the expectation that people could walk for utility, whether it's to a post office, a haircut, a school, a restaurant, dry cleaners. If that stuff is all within, if everything that you need to have to support daily life in America is within a 1/4 mile, that's how you end up with a walk score of 100. And we do have some pockets in North Dakota which have now made it up into the 90s to do that. But when we were doing an analysis of where schools were being put on the edge of cities in North Dakota, most of the places that were picked had a 0 walk score. And if you put a school in a place, you put an elementary school in a place where 0 walk score, that means that no student, when they open, is going to be able to walk there, which means that every parent has to drive them there, which then drives parking, drives all kinds of stuff. So part of what we have to have is we got to have more collaboration between the park district, the school district, and the city planners when we're doing the master planning, because decisions of one taxing authority is driving costs in the other. Somebody's saving is somebody else's overrun. And to us to design a city, we need all of those entities working together to think about how we design. And with that, we can actually drive health costs down in North Dakota for sure. And anyway, the Surgeon General clearly understands the link between community health and economic prosperity, and as well as being super knowledgeable on all kinds of everything else that's in the news relative to health stuff. But fantastic to have him here. In addition to being at this conference, he was out at high schools with the First Lady. I mean, day and a half of having a cabinet level official here doing all that stuff is fantastic, and he wants to come back. Gil Penalusa talked about all kinds of things, but the big takeaway and the big challenge is we can't just design our cities for us, and us means, you know, whoever's on the city council and you're all about the same age, or whoever's all, you know, on the park board about the same age. We got to figure out a way to build cities that work for people that are 8 years and under, and how they're, you know, at 80 years old, particularly when we've got, in North Dakota, we're going to have a doubling of the people over age 65. We better figure out how to do that, and one of the key things that he talked about, again, is back to walkability. One of the highest cost-benefit returns any community can do is to create walkability. He talked about the underutilization of parks, that you've got, you know, 20 to 25% of your population is over age 60, but they're only 4% of the park usage. Well, let's go out and figure out how to design parks that work for, you know, something other than the softball team. To do that, because it also creates not just physical activity and walking, but it creates community, it creates that connection, it creates that third place beyond work and house where people can come together. And I thought, you know, Gil was amazing, all these speakers amazing. Chris Zimmerman really drove home the numbers on smart infrastructure. In that organization, Smart Growth America, they do consulting with organizations. Some of the consulting projects they do for smaller communities, they'll do projects for $20,000 or $25,000. They'll come in and help do an economic analysis to help cities figure out what it is they have to do, but great resource there. Jana from AARP, again, put out a big challenge, which is, you know, how do we create communities on the senior end of that, when seniors, you know, have high incomes. And in North Dakota, you know, I think have we all just given up that everybody's going to move south in the wintertime? I mean, that's we're just sort of like sure that's going to happen, and then they go for 3 months, and then the next year it's 4 months, and pretty soon they're going to Arizona for 9 months. Or Florida, they go there, and then at home, when they're at home, they never go out for dinner, and then they go to Arizona, and you go out for dinner every night. Because what? Senior discount at 4 o'clock? You've all been there, right? I mean, it's like, I mean, I think we have to actually not just give up and assume that you reach a certain age and then somehow you never want to go to North Dakota. Talk to a senior that goes to Arizona in the winter and ask them what they like. They're probably living in a neighborhood with a bunch of their friends from up here, and they're actually closer together, and they're walking, or they've got different forms of mobility, whether it's a golf cart or something, but they might actually have more of the kind of lifestyle that we've been talking about that we need to create here, but they have it down there. So it's not just the weather they're going for. They're going because there's a design in some of those senior living communities that supports the socialization. But guess what? You can build a senior living community here. You can do that here. If they want to drive a golf cart around here, you can do that most of the years, and pretty soon there'll be a golf cart you can drive year-round. I'm positive. If not, we'll design one. So it's right? I mean, you got fat tire bikes. Why can't you have fat tire golf carts? So anyway, we just can't. We have to drop assumptions that the way things are the way they have to be, because design and our efforts can help change that. And guess what? We want to have seniors that spend more time here, stay connected to their grandkids. And most of the seniors, statistically today, the ones that are going to Arizona have got they can be economic contributors to communities, and they can be mentors. So anyway, there's a lot of work to do there. There are no cities in North Dakota today that have the AARP senior living designation. They've actually got a program. And so I just throw that out to any of the communities that are still here. The state of Maine has actually gone at us as a state, and they've got dozens and dozens of communities. So they went at it together. Communities and states said, we're all going to get the certification, and we're going to go. I think the closest one in the Midwest here is Sioux Falls, but this is a program I've just learned about at this conference, because like you, I'm here, I'm curious, I'm learning, and this is something that our team is going to dig into, and maybe we can put that on our list. You know, Jaizai, what can you say? You got a 14-year-old up here last night, really putting a challenge to all of us as adults, saying, it's great that you included us, it's great that you got some youth here, it's great that some of you got youth advisory boards, but we actually want to be more connected. We want to be more involved. We want to shadow people at city government. We want to do this. And then turns out we got people like Beach, North Dakota, that are doing a lot of the things that Jaizai was talking about. And so, but I know for one takeaway that we have when we have this conference next year, not only going to have more youth here, we're going to have more youth presenting, and we're going to let you hear the youth voice. Not just Jai giving a talk, but we're going to actually create an opportunity for the adults and the planners and the designers to hear from students like we've heard, because we don't do a listening session around the state for at the Main Street initiatives. We started out doing them without students, and we quickly stopped because we realized it doesn't work to go into a community and have the adults tell you how great it is, and then we separately would go to the school and the kids would say there's nothing to do in this town. We've got to get everybody in the same place. So anyway, it's fantastic that she was here and had a great gathering last night with some of the student leaders from our council last night as well. Ben Winchester, how many people heard him this morning? If you were here? Okay, I mean, Ben totally gets what's going on in North Dakota, because guess what? What's going on in northwest Minnesota is exactly the same thing that's going on across North Dakota, the rural communities, and there's rewriting that rural narrative is a challenge he put out to all of us, and we all have to then, we're here at this conference because we want to be part of the solution, but if we're perpetrating the rural narrative, which is actually not even factually or dated, not even from a data standpoint true, rural America has actually grown. He showed us the data, it's grown. It's less as a percentage of America, but it's growing. Not everyone is leaving. There are many people that are returning. Then we have to figure out, we have to get the correct narrative, and we have to share that going forward. Adam, again, showing great on the ground truth of what it takes in a community that was as far down as a community can get when you had the collapse of mining in that Butte Anaconda area, and then turning it around and driving it back up one project at a time. And so, again, believing in something and making something happen, bringing together all the resources on local development to turn around something that you could argue was further down than any community ever has been in North Dakota. So that I take as inspiration. And then Kim, again, we've just heard from Kim, but thank you, Kim. Thank you for your, it was a great capstone because she talked about everything. She talked about infrastructure. She talked about connecting with youth. She talked about new programs, the aviation program in high schools. We could be doing those in North Dakota. We think we're leading in UAS, but I don't think we got any high school that's building an airplane. Why don't we grab that idea and do 5 of those? I mean, we can be fast followers on all the great ideas. To close out here, I mean, just a couple things. One thing which we've shared before is our mission at Team ND, but we also have what we call cultural aspirations, because to drive change, you have to drive culture. And so across all the agencies that are part of the cabinet in North Dakota, we've identified 5 things. One is we want to be citizen focused, which means we've got to be better at listening, better at understanding. We've got to be designing our services and experiences, everything from our websites to our programs to our policies with the citizen in mind, as opposed to just perpetrating bureaucracy. We have to have a growth mindset, which is this where we come to things where we want to view challenges as opportunities, where we get feedback where people say, hey, you could have done it differently and better. We welcome that feedback as opposed to react negatively to it. And we are curious. We bring curiosity to everything we do. We bring humility as part of growth mindset, with the understanding that hey, maybe what I actually believed before isn't true, or the humility to understand that I don't know everything I need to do this job well. And so that growth mindset then puts you around a set of people that are all willing to work together to try to solve a problem, as opposed to those with a closed mindset. A closed mindset is I'm not interested in your feedback. We tried it once differently before, it didn't work. I mean, all the stuff that you run into that sometimes can be called bureaucracy. But we want to, move past that. And in leadership everywhere, I think Ben really nailed this one this morning when he was describing that there are more positions needed per capita in North Dakota than any other state, which would make sense because we've got, so many townships and so many counties and so many legislators and so many cities and city councils and boards and park boards and whatever, that we've got more than anybody. We set up a series of government, 100+ years ago, when the thought was the state was going to have a much larger population, and it turns out we didn't, partly because we've gotten so efficient in how we perform with agriculture in our state, and so then haven't gotten rid of a lot of those positions, and so it creates a lot of opportunity, and we need leadership everywhere. Working as one, I think one of the big things that we heard was that you can't do this as a single community. Ben was really talking about this morning. Communities exist within the context of a region. People might live in one town, they drive here for the dentist, they drive there for the doctor, they drive here for shopping. And they still can love their town, but we have to think about regional connectivity and regional economic development and regional collaboration, because we aren't fighting against. It's not. I was joking about Arthur and Hunter. I mean, that was the two towns 6 miles apart. We merged our schools when I was in 6th grade. Traumatic for the adults. I mean, kids were like, okay, great, we got more friends, and we have better teams. I mean, it was like, but for the adults, they were still talking about it 30 years later. They're probably still talking about it. But with the, working together, working as one can help us get the scale to solve a number of these problems. And again, we're not competing against the town 6 miles away or 15 miles away. We're competing against Arizona, who just dropped all regulations for everything. Arizona passed a law that says if you are a teacher in California, you can teach in Arizona. If you're a nurse in Minnesota, you can be a nurse there. If you're a addiction counselor in Texas, you can be an addiction counselor in Arizona. They figured out appropriately that the regulations had gone beyond consumers' health and safety into pure protectionism, and that had happened in every single state. And so there was zero risk to a citizen in Arizona to allow anybody who is licensed in another state, whether it's an engineer or a teacher, whatever it have to be able to work in their state. And most of the people today have 2 career couples, and most of the reasons today when you offer someone a job and they can come and then they can't move to our state, it's because the trailing spouse is blocked by some regulation and they got to go back to school, pay a fee, do whatever. I mean, it's brilliant what Arizona's done, and if 5 other states do that, we are going to be so far behind in recruiting, because every state's got more jobs open right now than they have people looking for jobs. And this is one tool that we could do that would actually allow us to have the net in-migration that we need, but we would have to do that working as one. And the last thing I would just say thank you to all of you is, whatever. If you're here, if you've been here, you've probably got multiple hats on, you are making a difference. And Theodore Roosevelt said, one of the great prize in life is the opportunity to work hard at work worth doing. And I really believe that there is few things that are more important than designing and building great communities in which people can live. Because when we do that, we promote health, we promote well-being, we promote connection. We help our young people, we help the next generation, we help our seniors. I mean, this is really purposeful work, and I'm grateful that all of you are here. So in closing, again, the 6 words that we talk about on Team ND: empower people, improve lives, and inspire success. I think all of that's happening. A lot of every award winner that was on stage last night from those communities and those programs, they're doing that. They're doing all of this. They're empowering people. They're improving lives, and they're certainly, the award winners certainly inspiring others to do that. But the one I really want to focus on for the takeaway from this conference is the empowerment. And the empowerment piece, we did the survey ahead of time with how things were working for people, and from the conference and what happened the last time. And people said they came more aware of best practices, more aware of the resources that were available. But the one that really matters is, do people leave here more capable of making change? And I'm hoping that if you're here, you're watching online, that you have been introduced to the best practices from all the speakers in the breakouts. You've gone to the trade show and you saw the 75 vendors and said, wow, there is a boatload of resources in the state of North Dakota to help us succeed. And then the last thing, which is, again, of course, is that you go home inspired and motivated and ready to team up and partner with your community and neighboring communities to say, we can make a change and we can make a difference. And if we can do that going forward, the sky's the limit, unlimited potential for our state, because we've got the resources, we've got the ideas, we've got the human resources, we've got the natural resources, we have all the things we have to really create a state that is really, truly remarkable and different from some of the other states, which are really held back by all kinds of issues that we don't even have to think about, thank goodness. And so, but with that, what a great birthday present for North Dakota to have all of you spending 3 days, trying to figure out how to build better and stronger communities, because with that, we can't reach our potential as a state, our fullest potential, unless each of our communities do. And so again, it's exciting that this Saturday, November 2nd, is going to be the 130th anniversary of our amazing state. It was about 340 Eastern time, and I believe that this would be 2:40 Central time. I don't think at the time when this was signed in 1889 they had daylight savings time, and we're falling back in the fall, and so I think it might have to be 1:30, or maybe, no, see, 1:40 might be the translation from 130 years ago. But anyway, sometime on Saturday afternoon, whether you're watching football, if you're out pheasant hunting, if you're hanging out with your kids, whatever you're doing on this thing, I mean, just maybe take a minute this weekend and say, hey, I'm grateful for the state of North Dakota being here. I mean, because it's what an incredible thing we have going on. And then you can secondarily, if you're feeling generous, you can also wish happy birthday to our younger sibling, South Dakota, who we are certain, even though the historic record's a little blurry, we're certain that Benjamin Harrison signed ours first before theirs. And that's why we're always listed as the 39th state, and they're listed as the 40th state. It has nothing to do with alphabetical. Okay, it's clearly, even though he was shuffling them around and trying to make sure nobody knew, we're quite sure that we're the 39th state. So anyway, you can always say happy birthday, North Dakota, and then happy birthday to our younger sibling, South Dakota. Anyway, but celebrate Halloween safely this weekend. And if you head out of here, share on social media this weekend why you love North Dakota. Get engaged on Main Street social media. Tell your stories. Help us tell your stories, because we want the state to know that there are incredible people doing incredible things at the community level to build healthy, vibrant communities, build smart, efficient infrastructure, and help us recruit and build and retain a 21st century workforce. Thank you. You guys have been fantastic. And here to close it out, we got some very scary people, and we've got our amazing host. Let's give it up for the most amazing host ever of a Main Street Conference, Michele Comer. Michele.
Thanks a lot. I thought you were calling me scary.
Yeah, no, you're not scary, but I'm the alien. Were you able to free yourself from the alien that was carried you in this morning?
Oh yeah. It wasn't actually attacking me. I don't have a mic on, so he wasn't attacking me. He was carrying me.
Carrying you.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
All right.
it was
Well,
all
he
good.
looked like he was kind of.
I know.
He was doing that. But
I know. Yeah.
It was very nice. I'm glad he safely got you up here and back, and I hope he's having a good day. And if you see him again, tell him we have 30,000 jobs open in North Dakota.
And tell all his friends.
Tell all of his friends,
Okay.
because we're very welcoming here, and we won't say to him, why in the world would you come from some strange planet to North Dakota?
Right.
We would just say, here, because we can just assume it was probably colder where he came from
Sure.
than here, and we could just fill them in, and maybe they have special powers and they could do like 10 jobs.
There you go.
And we only need 3,000 of them.
We figured it out.
We did. Okay. All right.
All
Okay.
right.
All right. Give it up for Michele.
Thank you so much, Governor Burgum, for your leadership. All right, so a little bit more recognition and gratitude. On the slides beside me, and I got to tell you something funny. When I was in the audience like this morning, it didn't actually occur to me until this morning that my big head must also be up on those screens. And that was a little intimidating to realize, but at least it didn't happen until today. In any event, my face is going to disappear, and what's going to replace it is scrolling through the names of our sponsors. And our sponsors were so important to making this event possible. It could not have happened without them. If you recognize the names of the businesses and organizations and cities and departments that sponsored this thing, say thank you to them. And also a couple other pieces of recognition. The centerpieces at our tables are just gorgeous. Those were created by the Main Street community. The details that the team worked through were just astounding, and so we're really thankful for all of that. I want to thank you for allowing me to be your Main Street tour guide for these last several days. It's been an absolute privilege. I have had a lot of fun, and I think that's important. I don't know what's happening right now. Has anyone had a chance to meet these guys? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Yeah? Let's give them a round of applause, because they're scary, but they're cute. And speaking of scary, change is scary sometimes. And we're talking about great, positive changes. And I would tell you this, change can be scary, but it can also be fun. And it is the most fun when you're with good company. And you are good company. So thank you guys. And I want to also say thanks to Matt Shannondor from the Haunted Fort. I am told that he is responsible for this, and he may even be in here somewhere. And speaking of the Haunted Fort, you can register for the Haunted Fort still, and you can enjoy that later tonight. So let's give these guys a round of applause. Moment. All right, can we do this? All right, we got it. Thank you. I'm giving you a high five. And one for you too. Thank you. All right. Awesome. So you've allowed me to have some fun up here, but make no mistake, we are very serious about your success, the success of your community, and ultimately the success of this great state. I have to give one more thank you also to my team at the Department of Commerce. They are professionals, they are hard workers, they are planners, they are detail-oriented, and most of all, they are people that care about all of you, and we're really proud to serve you. And finally, to you, thank you for showing up. It's the people that show up that make the difference, and that would be you. So, one other thing, I had to take one more picture before I set you off to your next adventure. And if your birthday is between January and June, well, first of all, everybody stand up, please, because this afternoon you're going to stand up. Your birthday is between January and June. I need you to do this with your hands. July to December. Okay, so hold there for a minute. Just hold on. Yeah, I gotta get this on the panoramic. Here's what you're gonna do. You gotta put a look on your face like you just succeeded in the most exciting Main Street initiative that you're walking home to implement. So do that right now. I gotta take your picture. Keep smiling, don't move, stay where you are. Awesome, 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 awesome. That's my standing ovation. All right, it is not over. You have snacks waiting for you. Please enjoy them. One more sound out here. Your job is to do what? Invite? Right? Okay, repeat after me. Invite and accept. All right, go invite someone to your community, accept the invitation, enjoy a snack. Join us for our breakout session starting at 2:15, bus tours, and Haunted Fort to follow. Thank you very much.